Hello guys, welcome to my live section. So let's do our market review for the week. What's happened this week, the bulls in the market. So let's look at what the market did. So let's start with the GBPUSD. So let's start from the weekly time frame. Because this week was just a sideways trend. We can see we have ups, down, ups, down, ups, down, up, downs. So we don't have a clear major move this week. We only have a sideways trend, which is what happened this week. So long we have this sideways trend, so what do we expect next is what I will break it down for you. Then I'll also do a weekly Forex analysis coming this weekend, where I also teach what we're expecting, so you can check that by Sunday 8 a.m. plus 1 GMT, which is Nigeria time. So let's dive straight to what happened this week in the Forex market on the major pairs. So let's get started. So the GBPUSD this week, we can see that price still remain on a resistance. We still have price on this resistance on the GBPUSD. So long we have price on this resistance of the GBPUSD on the candlestick anatomy, this is a sign of price. You might see a reversal of price back to these areas. Then if price fail to break this area, we might see a break of this area, which might lead to price pushing to this next level, and a break of this high, this might trigger more buy for the GBPUSD. So for now, we need a break of price above this strong resistance level for us to confirm any possible buy. But so long we have price on this resistance, we wait for buy above this area. Then for sell, we need the price to drop to this area. So let's look at the structure of the GBPUSD. Currently, we can see we still have sideways trend on the GBPUSD. So long we have this, which is we have price creating series of equal highs and equal lows. So long we have this sideways trend on the GBPUSD, we see expect we need a major break and retest for us to start looking for possible more sell. Then we need a break above, then we'll start looking for more possible for buy opportunity. So the GBPUSD now still remain on a range on the weekly time frame. So that is for the GBPUSD this week. So let's look at the daily time frame of the GBPUSD, what the pounds really did on the daily time frame. So if you are not joining us, please subscribe and like this live section. So on the daily time frame, you can clearly see that we still have this higher high, and we have this series of lower high on daily time frame, lower highs. So this is of lower highs. This is an inner structure movement to break this major structure level. So what I'm expecting this week now, so long we have such levels, so long we have price doing that, this week we might be still seeing price pushing lower, because first you can see we have price on the weekly resistance, but what we lack currently on the daily time frames, this will lack the flow of the market, which is the series of lower highs. So we still lack the flow of selling pressure for the pounds USD on the daily chart. We only have this higher high and the lower high. So this is not a good sign for sell pressure. So we want to start to see series of lower highs. Then we can say we have a strong momentum for price to drop to break this level. Then we can start looking for more sell. So our current level for now, we still remain sideways trend, trading reversal trend for the pounds. So long we have price rejected from this daily resistance and also a weekly resistance, this might push price back to these support areas. So this might push price back to this support area. Once price breaks this support area, this might trigger a retest. Then we can start looking for more sell. So from this level, this might trigger the second leg of the lower high, which might lead to high sell pressure for the pounds to this next support level. So that is for the pounds this week. So the pounds, let's look at the 4-hour chart. If you look at the 4-hour chart, we can see that the pounds on the 4-hour chart this week, you can see that price just did a straight move up, retest to create a higher low, a straight move up again, retest to create a higher low. So you can see that there's no clear move for pounds to even to go to the up. You can see that price remains find it difficult to break this level. So we don't have a clear move. But once we see a break, this might also push price to the top. Then once we see a close below any of these lower highs, this might also push price to the down. So you can see that the major structure on the 4-hour chart, we still have downtrend structure, which is, you can see we have lower low and price break this major structure level. So we need a series of lower high, break of this high, these levels for us to confirm the sell pressure for the pounds USD. So for now, until you see that major break, there's no sell pressure for the pounds USD. So let's look at our next pair, which is the EURUSD. So EURUSD on my daily chart, on a weekly chart, we still have price on the resistance, but price rejected from this my weekly support level. You can see we have price rejected from this resistance level. Then we also have price close on this resistance level, which shows that we need a break of price above this high for us to start looking for possible buy for the euro to the top. Then on this level already, currently we see have this level as resistance. This might still push price lower to this support. So expect this area, we need a clear of price below this area. We also need a clear of price above this area for us to make a proper decision on the Euro USD. So we need a clearer price on Euro USD. So the weekly is still not showing any clear price, any clear movement of price on Euro USD. So let's look at the daily time frame. So on the daily time frame now, we can clearly see that we have this higher high and lower high, then lower high and lower high. So the daily time frame is still pointing more down. So daily is still pointing more down, which shows daily might drop to this support. So you can see that the euro on the daily is still showing more down. So more down. And you can see that price reacted to this support already, which lead to price buy to this level, then price fail, then you can see that that's what lead to the sell reaction for price. So let's look at the 4-hour chart of the the Euro USD. So the 4-hour chart of Euro USD, we can clearly see we still have series of lower highs, but we can't sell from this support level. We need a break of price below the support areas, then we start looking for more sell. So that is for the Euro USD. So let's look at the DSY. So DSY, we can clearly see the DSY on the daily time frame. On the weekly time frame, we still have this structure still remain on break. So we need the break above this high for more buys. We need a break below for more sell. So for now, we don't have that clear movement for major move yet. And secondly, we can clearly see that price failed to break this resistance. Then price still remain on this support. Price still remain on this particular support level, and price failed to break this resistance. What does this mean? This means we have to stay neutral for this level, for this pair for now. We have to stay neutral. We have to stay neutral from now on the DSY and also on the Euro USD, because the weekly time frame is not giving us that clear information we needed to make any good decision. So let's look at the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you can see we have this double bottom, then a break of the neck of the double bottom. You can see that we have a lower low and higher low starts speeding up, which might push price above this area. First start looking for possible buy, because here we have a resistance at this area. We can't buy from that particular resistance. If you are buying from that resistance, it's a risk. So I don't encourage buying from that particular resistance level. So if you are not joining us, don't forget to like and subscribe so that once we are live, you'll be notified. So I usually share good analysis and swing analysis and live trade and trade ideas here on my live. So do well to subscribe if you're not joining us. So we cannot buy from these levels, this resistance level. We need a clear break, then we test of it for start looking for the buys. So for now, the dollar index, which is the DSY, still not that clear also. We don't have that clear picture for buy yet. But we see a break of this daily resistance, then we can see we now have a clear picture, and the retest of it might lead to that major buy. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame of DSY. You can see the DSY is currently on a range on the 4-hour time frame. Look at it, it's currently on range. So this is a sign of sideways trend. We don't have a clear direction to here, so we need a break above the level here, then we start looking for buys. We can't buy from these areas. These areas are all resistance areas, both on the weekly, both on the daily, and also on the 4-hour time frame. So don't buy from that particular level. So expect price to break above it for start looking for any possible buy on the DSY. So let's look at our next pair, which is the Australia USD. If you join my live this morning, my live stream this morning, we discuss about the Australia USD, and we also take a trade on Australia USD. The trade is currently in profit. You can see that Australia USD on the weekly time frame, we have this strong momentum for buys. You can see we have series of lower low and a series of higher low. So as long as we have this series of higher low, these are strong momentum for bullish move for the Australia USD. So what do we expect now on the Australia USD? We can clearly see that the long price remain on that resistance, and price will convert this support to resistance. So we expect price to drop to this strong support area for us to buy back. because the major trend of the Australia still remain on a bullish. So we need a retest of this level, then we can start looking for the buys to the top for the Australia. So if whatever thing you are trading here, just know that you are trading reversal trend of the Australia USD. You are just trading reversal trend of the Australia USD. So let's look at the daily time frame. So on my daily time frame now, you can clearly see that bearish trend started to build up. You can see we have these lower highs, and lower highs. This is a sign of bearish trend building up, which might push price to this weekly support before we can see possible buy back to the top. So let's look at the 4-hour time frame. So on the 4-hour time frame, we can see we have lower low, higher low. So we need a break low, then retest first, start looking for any possible sell. So, and you can also see that from the 4-hour time frame also, we have this major break. We have major break of structure on the 4-hour time frame. So long we see price break this major structure level, so this is a sign of change of trend for the Australia to move to the next weekly support level. So expect price to keep pushing lower for the Australia USD. So we need more sales on Australia USD this coming week, and we can also see that what the price did this week on the Australia USD. Price just did a range market. We don't have a strong move. You can see previous week we have this strong sell. Now price just ranging. So we don't have a clear strong move this week on the Australia USD. So let's look at our next pair, which is the USDJPY. If you follow my analysis last week, I said my best pair this week is USDJPY. So that's why you need to watch my weekly Forex analysis. I said I expect price to keep pushing higher to this level, and you can see that price currently at this area. Why do I say that? For 2 weeks now, I've been predicting price to continue to buy on the USDJPY because price rejected from this my strong level. So we expect price to continue to push to this level. Now, what do we expect now? We need a break of these highs for more buys for the USDJPY. So let's dive straight to daily charts. So on the daily charts, we can see we have price currently on this daily support. So we have price currently on this daily support area, and this might still push price towards to still move higher. So you can also see that this week also we don't have much movement. We have too much consolidation trend on the USDJPY, which is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candle, which is we just have price moving this range. So we don't have much movement on the USDJPY. So let's look at the 4 hours of the USDJPY. So on the 4-hour time frame, you can also see clearly that we just have a choppy market. So last 2 weeks I took my buy from this area on the USDJPY. Then ever since then, you can see we still had this choppy market because of the Japan intervention on the JPY. So the Bank of Japan did an intervention which make the USD weak, which make the JPY weak. So that's why the JPY just keep trending up for this week. So let's look at our next pair, which is the good USD. Good still currently not that doing any major move. You can see from this week we also have a sideways trend also, which you can see we have a sideways trend on the gold also. So you can see we have a lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. So long we have this lower high, you see expect price to keep pushing lower, but we have a support at this area. That is my major concern on good. We have a support at that area. That is my major concern on good. So let's look at the daily time frame. So on my daily time frame, you can also see that we still have series of lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, and lower highs. So we still expect more price to continue to push lower for the good. But we have this support area here, which we have to take note. So we have to avoid selling on those support areas. Avoid selling on support areas. So don't expect anything to happen on the support level. Avoid selling on support level. So let's look at our next pair, which is the BTC. So the BTC on the weekly time frame still have the major structure for sell, but we can't sell until we see price close below this level. Then we to retest, then we can start looking for sell to this level. That is for the BTC on the weekly time frame. So let's look at the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, you can see we have series of lower highs, and lower highs. So BTC might continue to push lower. We might see price breaking the weekly level because of the series of lower highs. So expect more downtrend for BTC. So that's what we are expecting for now on the BTCUSD. So let's look at our next pair, which is the US30. We watched my analysis last week, and this week I also said I expect more buys on the US30, which is we have this level and this level. So we expect price to buy, and price did buy from this level. Then you can see that price converted these levels to resist to support. We expect price to retest, then we can see more buy for US30. So let's look at, we said we expect price to buy. On the daily, you can see that price did buy as well as planned. So we can see that here price fee to break below, which lead to the buy. So that is for the US30. Then on the 4-hour chart, you can also see that we have a series of, you can see we have series of lower low, higher lows. This series of higher lows indicates strong buy for US30, which leads to these strong buys on US30. So let's look at our next pair, which is we still have, let's start from the weekly time frame on New Zealand USD. New Zealand USD rejected from this resistance. So this might point price dropping back to this support level for further buy for New Zealand. But a break of this support might see trigger more sell. So we said on this week, we said we expect price remain on this resistance. Then we expect price to drop, and you can see that price really dropped. But because of the sideways trend we have this week, price formed a doji there, which is indecision candle, telling us that we still expect more sell for the New Zealand USD. So on the daily chart of New Zealand USD, trend is started to shift. You can see we have this higher high and lower high. So we still expect more buys. But this week, you can see that we have this candle just in range. You can see we just have a range movement this week. So a lot of traders might suffer from this range movement. So once we have a range movement, it causes a lot of losses in the market. It causes traders to lose their money. So we can't predict when the market will be on the range. Nobody can predict that. So but look for better flow of price so that you can avoid those ranging market. For now, you can see we cannot do anything here. We need a flow of price for us to sell. We need a flow of price above for us to buy. So that is why if you can follow the flow of market, we avoid trading such pairs, and you also escape those sideways trend also. So let's look at USDCAD. USDCAD has been trending for 3 weeks now. You can see that we last upper week we bought from this area to this. We are expecting price to still move to this resistance on the USDCAD, and we still expect more move. So let's look at the daily time frame of the USDCAD. Let's look at the daily time frame. On the daily time frame, we can also see that price already is also still pushing higher, but we have this sideways trend. So you have price in the range. We need a break or series of higher low for us to keep strong buys on the USDCAD. Once we have that break of these highs, this might give us a strong buy for USDCAD to the top, because we are still predicting more buys on USDCAD. We are still predicting more buys. Expect price to still buy more on the USDCAD. We can also see that on the 4-hour chart, you see we have series of higher lows. This is good trend. We can buy from the lows, which can also give you good move. So you don't need to look for sideways trend and buy on sideways trend. That may lead to losses. Avoid doing that. So let's look at the next pair. Let's look at the next pair. Our next pair is the USDCAD. USDCAD. This week I said I expect price, because price close on this, we have a resistance here. Price close on this resistance. So I said I expect a retest, then we'll see a bit drop back to this support. But price retested and dropped, but there's no much move because of the sideways movement we have this week. So let's go to the daily chart. So on the daily chart, we can also see that we have higher high, series of lower highs, which might push price, but now price is currently on a support. So there might be a change of trend for this particular pair to the top. So, or a break might also lead to more sell. So that is for the USDCAD. So this week is more of a consolidation trend. So USDJPY, if you follow my analysis for throughout the week, I said I expect more buys, and you can see that the pounds JPY bought as expected, because you can see from the weekly price close on the support. So once we see price on the support, we have to still keep on buying. So that is for that. So let's go to next pair. On the weekly, the EURUSD. EURUSD, you can also see that we still have price on a range, and we also have strong bullish move, which may also push the EURUSD more for uptrend. So on the daily, we need a clear structural break, then we wait to retest, then more buys for the EURUSD. So what we learned this week from the market is that always look for a better flow of price movement. Don't trade shopping market. One thing you must avoid in trading, you must avoid shopping market. You are not for the week, so they can easily liquidate you. Avoid shopping market. Don't trade shopping market. Avoid shopping market. Don't trade shopping market. Avoid trading shopping market. So that is That is our analysis for the week. So see you guys next week. By Sunday 8 a.m. I'll be dropping my Forex weekly analysis. Do where to watch. I will give you good tips where to buy, where to sell on the major pairs. So do where to watch that particular video. So see you next week on my live section, and don't forget to go and watch my weekly Forex analysis during this week. Thank you. See you guys.